Hi Dreamers! Today I would like to show you an element I recently made that I think will be helpful. The element allows you to easily type in custom sculpted or painted fonts in Dreams. First, I'll explain how to type with the keyboard using the default font that I already loaded in for you. Then, I will show you how to load your own letters into your keyboard so you can use it for any font. If you choose to load in the letters, you only have to do it once. The keyboard has support for 67 unique characters. That includes all capital and lowercase letters, all the numbers, and 5 more symbols of your choosing. The characters could be anything, so if you don't need some characters, that could give you more slots. If you're especially savvy with logic, you could also easily add support for more characters. I set up the logic so that even characters that have no capital letter have separate keyframes, and they can be changed to include even more characters. I'll leave that up to the dreamers though, as I have no need for any more characters than the ones that I made. And now, let's get into it. For the first part of this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to actually type with the keyboard. To type your own text, you can either remix the keyboard, or you can put the keyboard into any scene. You don't have to worry about placing the keyboard in such a way that it's on grid or oriented the right way. Any position or orientation will do. Here's the keyboard. You can turn off preview invisibility to see the letters that are loaded into the keyboard. Now let's enter play mode. And now we're at the keyboard. You can type whatever you want now. Typing is made to be similar to the typing in a text displayer. Many hotkeys are shared, and I added some as well. For example, triangle is space, L2 is shift, R2 is enter, and R3 is caps lock. Unfortunately, you cannot backspace. There is no destroy last emitted object input in the emitter, so setting that up would be impossible without adding logic to the letters, which is not worthwhile. When you're done typing, return to edit mode. In assembly mode, which you should automatically be sent to, go to the Tools menu. On the right, you'll see an icon called bake-emitting. Click that, and then on the right, you'll see a button that says bake all emitted. Click that. I recommend that you group the letters together now. Once you bake emit, it'll automatically select everything. Once they're grouped together, you can grab the group, and scope it out of the keyboard, and you can delete the keyboard. And now you're left with just the letters that you made. The reason I recommend that you group the letters together is because you can double-click them inside the group to be able to select all of them and edit all of them at once. Okay, so that's it for typing. Let's look at how to load your own letters into the keyboard. Okay, let's talk about how you can load in your own custom font to the keyboard. First, remix the keyboard. You're going to want to save it so you never have to load the keys in again. Turn off preview invisibility and delete the letters in the default keyboard font. They're over here on the right. It might take a little bit to select them all, so I'm going to skip ahead to where I have them all selected. Okay, so I just deleted all the letters. Now you just stamp in your own letters. Let me find some letters on the Dreamiverse. Here's some letters. Ungroup the letters. You don't want to accidentally emit the entire font, instead of one letter at a time. Okay, so now go to the emitters here microchip. It's located on the very left of the logic. Here you can find all the emitters for all the different characters. The font that I put in didn't have letters for all the lowercase letters, so it's going to be a little bit less work. Make sure to put the letters in the correct emitters. The emitters are all labeled appropriately, and follow the QWERTY keyboard layout. They should be easy to find. Also, you don't have to worry about placing the letters near the cursor. The placement of the letters is already handled in the logic. We'll discuss fine-tuning later, so don't worry if things aren't lining up nicely right away. Let's load in Q. It can be a little unwieldy. Here we go. So I just put in the Q. And now I should be able to type Q. There we go. I put it into the capital Q slot, so it's coming only when I type a capital Q. So if your font is all capitals, you can either just keep caps lock on when you're typing, or you can load it both into the capital and lowercase emitters, just so that you never mess up. You can choose to be done here if you want. If your font is spacing correctly already, maybe all the letters are the same size, then you're done. For larger projects with lots of custom text, though, and a font that has different sizes of letters, I recommend continuing to the next tutorial to learn about fine-tuning the keyboard. It's going to save you time in the long run. And don't forget to save the keyboard after you're done loading all the letters. That way you never have to load it again, and you can always just stamp this keyboard whenever you want to type in your custom font. Okay, this is the third part. Let's see how to fine-tune the character placement. For this, I'm just going to use the font that's already loaded in there, just for ease of doing the tutorial. All the letters are already there for me. Okay, in the main logic chip, called keyboard logic, you can find 4 sliders that we're going to use. The keyboard logic chip is kind of right in the middle of all the chips, near the emitters here chip. Here it is. And here are the 4 sliders. I'm going to briefly explain them. The first one is called the character width slider. It's the most commonly used one. It's going to tell the cursor how far to go after typing each letter. This second slider is for convenience. It's called the caps letter extra width slider. It adds to the character width of all the capital letters at once. If the slider is causing you problems or you don't want to use it, just set it to 0 or delete it. It's a convenience for those who understand how to use it. Here's the vertical adjusting slider. This moves the characters up or down on the line. Streams automatically finds the center of the objects that it emits, so if your letters are different heights, you'll need to use this slider for fine-tuning each letter. It's especially useful for letters that go below the line, like lowercase g and j and y. Sliding the slider to the right will move the letters down, so make sure you remember that. Lastly, the text line length slider determines how far down the cursor will go after you press enter. It's like the spacing in a Word document. Okay, now we know what all the sliders do. Now, how do we actually adjust them? I'm going to show you how to apply these sliders to each letter. Before I do that, I want to discuss the sliders that shouldn't be applied to each letter. One of those is the text line length, because that's just when you press enter. And the other is the caps letter extra width. This is a global setting that you want to set outside of the keyframes. However, inside the keyframes of characters that are not capital letters, you're going to want to go in and set this to 0 so that it doesn't affect those letters that are not capital letters. I already did that in the element, but if you add more characters, you're going to have to make sure that that's true. Okay. All of that aside, let's actually get back to what we're really going to do, which is to look, how do we adjust these sliders for each letter? Well, when you were in the emitters here page, back when you were learning how to type, you might have noticed these keyframes on top of all the emitters. That's exactly where you want to go to adjust all the sliders. It says adjust sliders here. Let's look at capital Q, and let's adjust the sliders and see how things change. Q is a pretty wide letter, so I put it at 0.850 as the character width. Let's put it to 0, or maybe 0.167, and see what happens when we try to type capital Qs. As you can see, the character width is not long enough, so they're just spawning on top of each other. That's why you want to adjust the sliders. The other slider that you would adjust inside the character itself is the vertical adjusting slider. I'm going to look at the keyframe for lowercase g to demonstrate this, if I can find it. Here's G. I put the vertical adjusting all the way across, because G goes below the line. But if I remove that, and now I type G's, you can see that the G is as tall as the capital letter. So I would want it to go down. I hope that makes sense. Those are the two sliders you're going to use the most to space your letters properly. Now, keep in mind, there's no such thing as doing this perfect, because no matter how much tinkering you do, the letters aren't all gonna work perfectly. Certain letter combinations will look a little strange. The keyboard isn't perfect and does not completely count for kerning of characters. You can look up kerning if you want more information on what that is. Although you can certainly get the alignment to look reasonably good anyways without the kerning, and you can fine-tune it by hand later. Yep. Okay. Now let's discuss some tips on how to adjust your letters to make them better. So I just messed up the Q. Let's try to fix it. Right away, I know that the capital Q has to be wider. So I'm going to go into that capital Q slider, and I'm going to make it wider. And then I'm going to go test it. Well, how do you test it? I think the best way to test it is to just spam the letter and see them appear next to each other. And then you can see, oh, they're kind of far apart. I want those letters to be closer. And then you can go back in and adjust as you need. It looks like 8.5 was actually correct. And then I want to give you another tip as well. If you put a lowercase d before the letter, that'll help, because lowercase d is flush with the right side. So it'll show you if it's too close or not close enough. Yeah. Okay, so I hope that helps with adjusting your letters and fine-tuning them. Once again, don't forget to save your remix keyboard after loading the letters in so you never have to load them again. I hope that the Dreamers find this useful. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time I decide to make something.